Have you ever wondered why some people earn modest salaries yet retire as millionaires, while others make six figures and remain perpetually broke? The answer might shock you, because it has nothing to do with how much money comes into your bank account. Charlie Munger, one of the greatest financial minds of our generation, spent decades unraveling this mystery, and what he discovered flies in the face of everything we've been taught about money. The truth is, most people aren't poor because they don't earn enough. They're poor because they're unknowingly bleeding wealth through seemingly innocent purchases that society has convinced them are perfectly normal. Think about your own spending habits for a moment. Has this ever happened to you? You look at your bank account wondering where all the money went, even though you feel like you haven't spent on anything extravagant. You're not alone. Millions of people experience this exact frustration month after month, year after year, never realizing that the real culprits aren't the obvious splurges, but rather the normal things everyone else is buying too. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Here's what makes this so insidious. These wealth destroyers don't announce themselves. They don't look dangerous. In fact, they look responsible, practical, even necessary. Society endorses them. Your neighbors buy them. Financial institutions encourage them. They might even give you a temporary sense of accomplishment or satisfaction. But underneath the surface, they're working like termites in the foundation of your financial house, silently consuming your wealth day by day, year by year, until one day you wake up wondering why you're not where you thought you'd be financially. Charlie Munger understood something that most people never grasp. Financial success isn't primarily about earning more. It's about avoiding the silent wealth killers that drain your resources before you even realize what's happening. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because we're not talking about cutting out coffee or canceling streaming services. Those financial advice cliches miss the forest for the trees. We're talking about 5 major purchases that cost the average person hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars over a lifetime. The fascinating part, these aren't frivolous luxuries. They're things that most people consider completely normal, even essential. Things your parents probably bought. Things your friends are buying right now. Things that financial institutions are more than happy to help you purchase. Stay with me until the end, because understanding these 5 wealth destroyers could be the difference between retiring comfortably and working until you physically can't anymore. The damage these purchases cause isn't immediate, and that's precisely why they're so dangerous. Like termites, you don't see the destruction until it's too late to easily repair. But unlike termites, once you know what to look for, you can stop the damage immediately and redirect those resources toward actually building wealth. So let's dive into the first major wealth killer that's probably sitting in your driveway right now. If you want more practical wealth-building strategies like this, hit that subscribe button. I share content like this regularly, and I'd love to have you here for the journey. The first wealth destroyer is probably sitting in your driveway right now, and it's something that most people consider absolutely essential to their daily lives. I'm talking about brand new cars fresh off the dealership lot. Now, before you dismiss this as extreme or unrealistic, hear me out. Because the hidden truth behind this purchase is one of the most devastating financial revelations you'll ever encounter. And understanding it represents a fundamental mindset shift that separates those who build wealth from those who just look wealthy. Everyone needs transportation, that's not debatable, but here's where the journey toward financial freedom diverges sharply from the path most people follow. The decision between buying new versus used creates $1 million impact over your lifetime that almost nobody calculates. When you walk into that dealership and smell that intoxicating new car scent, You're not just buying a vehicle, you're making a choice that will echo through decades of your financial life in ways you've never considered. Here's the transformation that needs to happen in your thinking. The moment you drive that gleaming new car off the lot, before you've even merged onto the highway to take it home, it has already lost somewhere between 10 and 20% of its value. Think about that for a second. You haven't made a single car payment yet. You haven't put a single mile on it beyond the test drive, and you've already lost thousands of dollars. It's like watching money evaporate into thin air, except this evaporation is built into the transaction, accepted as normal, and rarely discussed by the smiling salesperson handing you the keys. But the real revelation goes much deeper. Over the next 5 years, that car will shed approximately 60% of its total value. A $40,000 vehicle becomes a $16,000 asset. You've hemorrhaged $24,000 simply by owning it, and that's if you paid cash, which most people don't. The reality for millions of car buyers is far worse because they finance these depreciating assets, which means they're not just losing money to depreciation, they're simultaneously paying interest on something that's losing value every single day. Let me walk you through the complete mathematics of this decision, because the numbers tell a story that most people never see until it's too late. When you finance that $40,000 car over 5 years at 5% interest, your monthly payment sits at roughly $754. Over those 5 years, you'll pay a total of $45,240. Now comes the gut punch. At the end of those 5 years of faithfully making payments, your car is worth about $16,000. You've paid over $45,000 to own something worth $16,000. Nearly $30,000 has simply vanished, dissolved into the combined forces of depreciation and interest. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because what most people never calculate is the opportunity cost, the invisible but devastating impact of what that money could have become instead. That $30,000 you lost on one car purchase, if invested at a modest 10% annual return over 30 years, would grow into over $500,000. Write in the comments, "I never calculated this before," if this revelation is hitting you as hard as it should, because understanding this hidden cost is the first step toward making decisions that actually build wealth rather than destroy it. And here's where the real transformation in thinking needs to happen, because this isn't just about one car purchase. Most people don't buy a new car once and call it a day. They repeat this pattern every 5 to 7 years throughout their entire adult lives. That means this decision gets made 5, 6, maybe 7 times over a lifetime. We're not talking about losing $30,000 anymore. We're talking about losing hundreds of thousands, potentially crossing into 7-figure territory when you account for the compounding wealth those dollars could have generated instead. Charlie Munger understood this at a level that most people never reach. Throughout his entire life, spanning nearly a century of accumulating billions in wealth, he never once bought a brand new car. Not when he was struggling financially early in his career, and certainly not after becoming one of the wealthiest individuals on the planet. He bought used cars, reliable and practical vehicles that got him from point A to point B, and he drove them until they literally couldn't be driven anymore. When people questioned this habit, when they asked why someone worth over $100 billion would drive an old, unremarkable car, his answer cut straight to the heart of the matter. A car is transportation, nothing more, and a new car doesn't transport you any better than a well-maintained used one. This is the mindset shift that separates those who build lasting wealth from those who simply appear wealthy. Most people view their car as an extension of their identity, a statement about who they are, a signal of their success or status. But that perspective costs them their actual financial success. The hidden truth that wealthy people understand is that a car is a tool, a depreciating tool that costs you money every single day you own it. It's not an investment, it's not an asset in any meaningful sense. It's an expense that either accelerates or decelerates your journey toward financial freedom, depending on how you approach it. Now, let me show you what this looks like in practice. Because understanding the problem is only half the battle. The real revelation comes when you see the alternative path. Instead of buying new, you purchase a reliable used vehicle that's 5 to 7 years old. You pay cash for it, avoiding interest payments entirely. You maintain it properly and drive it for 10 years or longer. Suddenly, instead of $754 leaving your account every month, you have $754 available to invest. Over those same 5 years, that's over $45,000 that goes into assets that appreciate rather than depreciate, into investments that compound and grow rather than into a vehicle that's worth less every single day. The impact of this single decision reverberates through every aspect of your financial life. You're not just saving money on the car itself, you're freeing up monthly cash flow that can be redirected toward building real wealth. You're avoiding the psychological trap of perpetual car payments that so many people accept as just part of life, never questioning whether there's a better way. You're breaking free from the cycle that keeps millions of people feeling broke, despite earning good incomes, because they're channeling massive amounts of money into depreciating assets, rather than appreciating ones. What's fascinating is how resistance to this idea reveals just how deeply the conditioning runs. People will defend their new car purchases with remarkable passion, listing reasons why they need the latest model, the best technology, the warranty coverage. But behind these justifications often lies something deeper, a need for validation, a desire to project success, a fear of being judged for driving something modest. These emotional drivers, combined with aggressive marketing from car manufacturers and easy financing from lenders, create a perfect storm that traps people in wealth, destroying patterns they never consciously chose. Put down in the comments, "I'm rethinking my car decisions," if you're starting to see how this one choice could change your entire financial trajectory, because what comes next might be even more eye-opening when we examine where you live and how that decision shapes everything else. The second wealth destroyer lurks behind the very walls that shelter you, and it's perhaps the most emotionally charged financial decision most people will ever make. I'm talking about buying a house that's too expensive for your income. And before you think this doesn't apply to you, understand that the financial institutions have designed this trap so cleverly that millions of responsible, intelligent people fall into it every single year without realizing what's happening. Here's the hidden truth that banks will never tell you outright. Just because they approve you for a certain mortgage amount doesn't mean you should borrow anywhere near that much. When a bank runs your numbers and tells you that you're qualified for a $400,000 loan, they're not looking out for your wealth-building potential. They're calculating the maximum amount they can lend you while still being reasonably confident you won't default. Their interest is in maximizing their interest income from you, not in ensuring you have money left over to invest and build actual wealth. The transformation in understanding this requires seeing through the facade of what approval really means. A person earning $100,000 annually gets approved for a $400,000 house, and the immediate psychological response is to think, "Great, I can afford a $400,000 house." But this is precisely where the journey toward financial freedom diverges sharply from the path of perpetual financial struggle. That approval isn't a recommendation, it's a ceiling. And treating a ceiling as a target is one of the most devastating mistakes you can make. Let me break down the real impact of this decision, because the numbers reveal a truth that most people discover far too late. That $400,000 house requires a $320,000 mortgage if you put 20% down. At 4% interest over 30 years, you're looking at roughly $1,500 monthly just in principal and interest. But the revelation doesn't stop there, because houses come with expenses that renters never see. Property taxes, homeowners insurance, maintenance, repairs, all of this easily adds another $500 to $1,000 monthly. Suddenly you're spending between $2,000 and $2,500 every single month on housing alone. Now here's where the mathematics becomes truly sobering. On a $100,000 annual income, $25,000 to $30,000 yearly on housing represents a quarter to nearly a third of your gross income. But you don't live on gross income. You live on what's left after taxes. After federal, state, and payroll taxes, someone earning $100,000 might take home around $70,000. Spending $25,000 to $30,000 of that on housing means 40% or more of your actual take-home pay disappears into your house. What's left for investing, for building wealth, for creating the financial freedom that home ownership is supposed to provide? Almost nothing. You become what's known as house poor, with all your wealth locked into equity you can't access without selling or borrowing against it. Charlie Munger's approach to housing reveals the mindset that actually builds wealth. In 1958, he bought his house for $31,500. Even back then, he could have afforded significantly more, but the house was comfortable, located well, and most importantly, it was enough. By keeping his housing costs modest, he freed up capital to invest in stocks, to build businesses, to pursue opportunities that actually appreciated in value rather than tying up. His resources in expenses disguised as assets. Write in the comments, "Housing costs are stealing my future," if you're beginning to see how this single decision might be the invisible barrier between where you are financially and where you want to be, because the patterns we're uncovering go even deeper when we look at what you're putting inside that house. The real revelation about housing costs comes when you understand what happens to the rest of your financial life, when you stretch yourself too thin. This isn't just about making payments, it's about the invisible impact on every other wealth-building opportunity that comes your way. When 40% or more of your take-home pay disappears into housing expenses before you've bought groceries, paid utilities, or put gas in that car we talked about earlier, you're not building wealth, you're building a prison made of mortgage statements and property tax bills. What's particularly insidious about this trap is how it masquerades as responsible adult behavior. Society celebrates home ownership as the pinnacle of financial achievement, the ultimate sign that you've made it. Real estate agents, mortgage brokers, even well-meaning family members encourage you to buy as much house as you can possibly afford, as if maximizing your mortgage is somehow a badge of honor. But this mindset shift from viewing a house as shelter to viewing it as a statement of success is costing people their actual financial freedom. Here's the hidden truth that transforms everything once you see it. Your house should cost no more than 2.5 to 3 times your annual income, ideally even less. Someone earning $100,000 yearly should be looking at houses in the $250,000 to $300,000 range, not $400,000. This isn't about deprivation, it's about proportion. It's about ensuring that your shelter supports your wealth-building journey rather than derailing it completely. The mathematics behind this guideline reveal why it matters so profoundly. When you follow this rule, you're not spending 40% of your take-home pay on housing. You're spending perhaps 25 to 30%, leaving meaningful amounts available for investing. And here's what most people miss entirely. You should be putting down at least 20% to avoid private mortgage insurance, that additional monthly fee that's pure waste. Even more importantly, you should be getting a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30-year one, forcing yourself to pay off the debt faster and avoiding decades of interest payments that dwarf the original loan amount. Most people do the exact opposite of all of this. They buy the maximum house they can get approved for, stretching their budget to the breaking point. They put down the minimum, often just 3 or 5%, because they want to preserve cash for furnishing that new house. They take a 30-year mortgage because the monthly payments are lower, never calculating that they'll pay nearly double the purchase price by the time it's paid off. And then they genuinely wonder why building wealth feels impossible, why every month feels like a financial tightrope walk, why they can't seem to get ahead despite earning decent incomes. The opportunity cost here is staggering when you actually calculate it. Over 30 years, the difference between buying a modest house that's well within your means versus stretching for the maximum you can afford represents over $1 million in lost investment growth. That's not theoretical money, that's real wealth that could have been yours, redirected instead into interest payments, higher property taxes, more expensive maintenance, all flowing out of your life rather than compounding within it. The journey toward financial freedom requires seeing your house for what it truly is, shelter that should enable wealth building, not an anchor that prevents it. Put down, "I'm buying less house," in the comments if this revelation is changing how you think about one of life's biggest financial decisions. Because what we're about to uncover about the things you put inside that house might be even more surprising in terms of wealth destruction. The third wealth destroyer is something most people don't even think of as a significant expense, which is precisely why it's so dangerous. Once you've bought that house, whether modest or excessive, there's an almost irresistible urge to fill it with brand new furniture and decor, and this is where tens of thousands of dollars quietly disappear, often financed at high interest rates, for items that serve the exact same function whether they're bought new or used. Think about what happens in the typical scenario. Someone moves into a new home and immediately feels that the space needs to be furnished properly, completely, and quickly. A new couch costs $2,000. A dining room set runs $3,000. Bedroom furniture adds several thousand more. Then come the decorations, the artwork, the rugs, the lamps, all the little touches that turn a house into what magazines tell us a home should look like. Before you've even realized what's happening, you've spent $20, $30, sometimes $40,000 furnishing a house, and here's the revelation that changes everything. Furniture is furniture. It serves a function. You sit on it, you eat at it, you sleep in it. Brand new furniture doesn't do any of these things better than gently used furniture. But the transformation in thinking that's required here goes against everything retail culture has conditioned us to believe. People want their homes to look impressive, to feel like those perfectly staged showrooms or Instagram photos. They want to impress visitors who might come over a handful of times per year. Furniture stores understand this psychology intimately, and they're more than happy to offer financing options that make a $2,000 couch feel affordable at just $89 per month. What they don't advertise prominently is the interest rate attached to that convenient payment plan, or the fact that you're now paying interest on furniture that's depreciating in value from the moment it's delivered. The hidden truth about furniture is that it loses value, not as dramatically as cars, but it still depreciates steadily. Modern furniture especially isn't built to last generations like older pieces were. It's designed to look good in the store and survive a few years of use before styles change, and you feel the urge to redecorate again. Meanwhile, wealthy people approach furniture completely differently. They shop estate sales, garage sales, online marketplaces. They hunt for quality pieces at fractions of retail prices, or they buy new furniture very slowly over many years, starting with only the essentials and adding pieces as they can genuinely afford them with cash, never furnishing an entire house in one expensive shopping spree. Charlie Munger kept some of the same furniture for decades, pieces he'd bought used or bought new but maintained indefinitely because they still functioned perfectly well. He never understood the compulsion to constantly redecorate or replace furniture simply because styles evolved or trends changed. This mindset, this resistance to the cultural pressure to keep upgrading and refreshing your surroundings, is what separates those who build wealth from those who perpetually wonder where their money went. The impact of this decision, when calculated over time, is genuinely startling. If you spend $30,000 furnishing your house with brand new everything, when you could have furnished it beautifully for $10,000 by shopping smart and being patient, you've created a $20,000 difference. That $20,000 invested at 10% returns for 30 years becomes roughly $350,000. That's not a minor difference. That's generational wealth. That's financial freedom, all sacrificed for the privilege of having furniture that nobody used before you. Write in the comments, "Used furniture builds wealth," if you're starting to see how these seemingly small decisions compound into life-changing amounts, because the pattern continues into nearly every area of modern life, especially the devices you're probably holding right now. The fourth wealth destroyer is something that's probably within arm's reach of you right now, and it represents one of the most aggressive wealth extraction systems ever devised by modern corporations. I'm talking about the relentless cycle of upgrading to the latest technology and gadgets. The newest smartphone every year, the latest laptop even when your current one works perfectly, smart home devices, gaming systems, tablets, smartwatches, wireless earbuds, all the tech that companies have convinced you represents progress and necessity, when it's actually just planned obsolescence dressed up as innovation. Here's where the mindset transformation needs to happen, because technology companies have become masters at creating artificial urgency around their products. Every year, like clockwork, a new model launches with slightly better features, and millions of people line up to trade in perfectly functional devices for the latest version. The hidden truth behind this cycle is that these aren't needs, they're manufactured wants. Expensive ones that become outdated almost immediately, ensuring you'll feel pressure to upgrade again next year. Let me show you the real impact of this pattern, because the numbers tell a story most people never calculate. A new flagship smartphone costs $1,000 or more. Every single year, a new model appears. If you buy one annually, that's obviously $1,000 per year. But here's the revelation. If you simply extend your upgrade cycle from every year to every 2 years, you're saving $500 annually. That might not sound like life-changing money at first, but follow the journey of those dollars. Over 40 years of adult life, that's $20,000 saved. When you invest that $20,000 at 10% returns over those same 40 years, it becomes nearly $1 million. Almost $1 million from the simple decision to not upgrade your phone every single year. And phones represent just one category in the technology trap. The same principle applies to laptops, tablets, televisions, gaming consoles, all of it. Each device follows the same pattern, marketed as essential, priced at a premium, obsolete within months as the next version is teased, creating a perpetual treadmill of consumption that benefits manufacturers enormously while draining wealth from consumers systematically. Charlie Munger's approach to technology reveals the clarity that comes from seeing through marketing manipulation. He famously used a flip phone for most of his life, a device that does exactly what he needed it to do, which was make phone calls. While people thought this made him ancient or out of touch, his flip phone cost almost nothing, never needed upgrading, didn't distract him with endless notifications, and didn't generate ongoing costs through apps or subscriptions. It was simply a tool that served its purpose efficiently. Now, the transformation required here isn't necessarily getting a flip phone yourself, though. That's certainly an option. It's about recognizing that you don't need the latest model of anything. You can keep your phone for 4 or 5 years instead of 2. You can buy last year's model at a significant discount. You can take care of your devices so they last longer. Most people upgrade their technology not because they need to, not because the old device stopped functioning, but because they want the new features, because they want to feel current, because advertising has successfully convinced them that using older technology somehow diminishes them. Wealthy people see through this manipulation completely. They use technology until it genuinely stops working or becomes truly obsolete for their actual needs. They don't chase the latest gadgets. They view technology as a tool that should serve them, not as a status symbol or identity marker. Put down, "My old tech still works," in the comments if you're recognizing how much money might be quietly flowing out of your life through unnecessary upgrades. Because what we're about to examine next might be the most emotionally charged wealth destroyer of all. The one people defend most passionately, even as it costs them their financial freedom. The fifth and final wealth destroyer is the one that people defend most fiercely, often with genuine passion, because it touches on something deeper than money. It strikes at how we define living well, how we create memories, how we justify our existence beyond just accumulating wealth. I'm talking about luxury experiences that you genuinely cannot afford. The expensive vacations, first-class flights, five-star hotels, designer restaurants, VIP concert tickets, luxury cruises, all the experiences that get justified with that powerful phrase, "You only live once." And here's where I need you to really hear me, because I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy life. I'm not advocating for a joyless existence of pure accumulation. The transformation in thinking that's required here is understanding the massive difference between enjoying life affordably and spending money you don't have on luxuries that put your financial future at risk. Most people blur this distinction completely. They see friends posting vacation photos on social media. They feel the sharp sting of missing out, and they book expensive trips they can't truly afford, often putting them on credit cards that will haunt them for years. A luxury vacation easily costs $5, $10, even $15,000 for just 1 week of your life. 1 week. And then it's over, leaving you with photos, memories, and often significant debt. What kills me about this pattern is the cognitive dissonance it reveals. People will spend $10,000 on a vacation without hesitation, then turn around and say they don't have money to invest, that they can't afford to contribute to retirement accounts. They have money for a luxury cruise, but not for building the financial foundation that would give them permanent security. The priorities are completely backwards, choosing temporary pleasure over lasting freedom, choosing 1 week of luxury over potentially years of financial independence. Now let me go even deeper into this revelation, because the mathematics here are particularly devastating when you actually calculate the opportunity cost. Let's say someone takes 2 luxury vacations per year, spending $10,000 each time. That's $20,000 annually on travel. Over 30 years, that's $600,000 spent on vacations. But here's the hidden truth that changes everything. If they had taken budget vacations instead, spending perhaps $5,000 total per year, and invested that other $15,000 annually at 10% returns, that becomes approximately $2.4 million. $2.4 million. That's the real cost of luxury vacations, not just the money spent, but all the wealth that money could have become. And before you dismiss this as unrealistic or extreme, understand that budget vacations can create memories just as meaningful, sometimes more so, than expensive ones. The best memories rarely correlate with price tags. They're about experiences shared, moments of genuine connection, unexpected discoveries. I've known families who took simple road trips that became cherished memories for life, and I've known people who spent $20,000 on luxury vacations they barely remember. The experience isn't determined by cost, but your wealth trajectory definitely is. Charlie Munger never took expensive vacations, never felt compelled to fly first class or stay in five-star hotels. A fancy hotel room is just a place to sleep. A first-class seat arrives at the same destination simultaneously with economy. The journey toward wealth requires seeing through the illusion that luxury experiences somehow validate your existence or prove your success. Write in the comments, affordable memories last longer. If you're understanding how these choices compound into either freedom or perpetual financial stress, because everything we've covered connects into a larger pattern that determines whether you build lasting wealth or just the appearance of it. So let's pull back and look at the bigger picture here, because what we're really talking about goes far deeper than individual purchases. These 5 wealth destroyers share a common thread that reveals something profound about how modern society is structured. Every single one of them appears completely normal, even responsible. Everyone around you is making these same choices. Financial institutions encourage them. Marketing reinforces them. Social pressure validates them. You're not just fighting against your own desires when you resist these purchases, you're fighting against an entire cultural narrative that equates consumption with success and restraint with deprivation. This is why the transformation required here is so challenging and why most people never make it. It's not that they don't understand the mathematics. Once you see the numbers laid out, the logic becomes undeniable. A $30,000 loss on a car, $1 million difference in housing choices, $350,000 sacrificed for new furniture, $1 million gone to phone upgrades, $2.4 million spent on luxury vacations instead of invested. These aren't trivial amounts. We're talking about multi-million-dollar decisions over a lifetime, the difference between financial freedom and perpetual struggle. But understanding intellectually and acting on that understanding are completely different challenges. The real barrier isn't knowledge, it's courage. It takes genuine courage to drive a 10-year-old used car when your neighbors are leasing new ones. It takes courage to live in a modest house in a good school district when you're approved for something much larger. It takes courage to furnish your home slowly with second-hand pieces when everyone else seems to have picture-perfect interiors. It takes courage to keep your phone for 5 years when everyone around you upgrades constantly. It takes courage to take road trip vacations when your social media feeds overflow with exotic destinations and luxury resorts. This courage is rare because the social cost feels immediate while the financial benefit feels distant. You face judgment now for driving that old car. The $1 million you're building sits invisibly in investment accounts, not announcing itself to neighbors or colleagues. You feel the sting of missing out today when you skip the luxury vacation. The $2.4 million you're creating reveals itself only decades later. The psychological weight of being different, of going against the current, of resisting what everyone else accepts as normal, that's heavy, that's real. And that's precisely why most people choose the path of societal acceptance over the path of wealth building. But here's the hidden truth that makes it all worthwhile. That freedom, that ability to live life on your own terms, without financial stress, without being trapped by payments and debt, without having to work until you physically can't anymore, that freedom is worth more than any car or house or furniture or gadget or vacation could ever be worth. The people who understand this, who make the hard choices early and consistently, they're the ones who end up with both the freedom and the resources to truly enjoy life, not just perform enjoyment for social media while drowning in debt behind the scenes. Charlie Munger chose this path deliberately and never regretted it for a single moment. Not because he was miserly or joyless, but because he understood that real wealth provides options that consumption never can. Write in the comments, I choose freedom over appearances, if you're ready to start making decisions that actually build wealth, rather than just creating the illusion of success. Because what comes next is about turning this understanding into concrete action that changes your financial trajectory permanently. The journey from understanding to action begins with a single decision, and that decision needs to happen today, right now, not someday when circumstances are better, or when you're earning more, or when the timing feels perfect. Because here's the hidden truth about timing. It never feels perfect. There will always be reasons to delay, always justifications for making just one more wealth-destroying purchase before you start doing things differently. The transformation happens when you decide that your financial freedom matters more than the comfort of blending in with everyone else's consumption patterns. So what does this actually look like in practice? It starts with examining your current spending through this new lens we've developed together. Look at your car situation honestly. Are you making payments on a depreciating asset when you could be driving something paid off and investing that monthly payment instead? Look at your housing cost without emotion or ego. Is your house supporting your wealth building or preventing it? Walk through your home and calculate what you spent furnishing it with new items when quality used pieces would have served you just as well. Check your technology drawer and count how many devices you've upgraded unnecessarily over the past 5 years. Review your vacation spending and ask yourself honestly whether those luxury experiences created proportionally better memories than affordable alternatives would have. This audit can be uncomfortable, even painful, because it forces you to confront the cumulative impact of decisions you've been making for years, perhaps decades. You might discover you've unknowingly sacrificed hundreds of thousands, maybe millions in potential wealth. But here's the revelation that makes this discomfort worthwhile. Every single day from this point forward is an opportunity to make different choices. The money already spent is gone, but the money you would have spent tomorrow on wealth-destroying purchases can be redirected starting immediately. The discipline this requires isn't about deprivation, despite how it might initially feel. It's about clarity of purpose. When you truly understand that driving a modest used car instead of financing new ones can make you a millionaire over your lifetime, the choice becomes easier. When you viscerally grasp that, living in a house well below your approval amount creates over $1 million in investment opportunity, downsizing or staying put stops feeling like sacrifice. When you calculate that buying quality used furniture instead of new saves $350,000 over 30 years, suddenly shopping estate sales feels exciting rather than embarrassing. This mindset shift transforms your entire relationship with money because you stop viewing these choices through the lens of what you're giving up and start seeing them through the lens of what you're gaining. You're not depriving yourself of a new car, you're choosing financial freedom. You're not settling for a modest house, you're prioritizing wealth building. You're not being cheap with furniture, you're being strategic. You're not missing out on luxury vacations, you're investing in permanent security over temporary pleasure. What makes this sustainable long-term is that the benefits compound in ways that extend far beyond just the money. Yes, you're building wealth that will eventually provide freedom, but you're also developing discipline, clarity, and independence from social pressure. You're learning to make decisions based on your values rather than others' expectations. You're building the psychological strength to be different, to resist manufactured urgency, to think long-term in a culture obsessed with immediate gratification. Put down "starting today, not someday" in the comments if you're ready to begin this transformation immediately, because the final piece of this puzzle is understanding exactly how to redirect these savings into investments that actually build the wealth we've been talking about throughout this entire journey.